Well, greetings and welcome to the channel. Another short one today, but I think it's one that is worth talking about because not everybody knows the terminal and whatnot. And sometimes you just want to be able to use your Windows applications in a way that makes sense. There are different GUI front ends that you can use in order to do something like install an application through Wine. A lot of the guides and stuff go into gaming and whatnot, and I will talk about gaming at some point. But for the large part of it, sometimes we just need basic applications. Now, you can find alternatives. Alternatives are great, and there's plenty of alternatives, and where possible, or if I remember to do so, I will talk about them. But there is an application that I do think doesn't get a lot of light shown toward it that actually could kind of use it, and I'll explain in a second. Crossover is a front end for Wine. This is actually the team that is behind a lot of the Wine development. And in this particular case, this is a GUI, I believe GDK front end that handles such things. But this front end allows you to install particular applications in Wine in their own Wine containers. There are similar applications like Bottles. Lutris is another great one. And there's launchers like Heroic and things like that. And then some, like the Star Citizen Linux user group, have their own tool that does kind of the same thing, creates a Wine prefix, and enables you to install the launchers. These things are cool, but what if I need to actually get an application on my system? Now you can see over here, I've been messing with it off camera a little bit, and we'll talk about those applications later. First, I want to talk about Crossover. Crossover is by CodeWeavers. They are the people behind Wine. They are the people that develop Wine and add to it and whatnot. There's tons of other companies involved, but these are the people primarily doing most of the work to Wine. And they sell this thing called Crossover. Now they sell it for Mac OS and for Linux that essentially is bringing Wine to these platforms to let you run Windows applications. It's not just games, actual Windows apps to run. If you need a specific version of Microsoft Office that isn't available on your platform, or if you need a particular piece of software that you just can't get, but you run a different platform, well, that is what you gotta do. And like I said, I'm mostly concerned with the Linux side. It is a paid-for piece of software, to be fair. I am not sponsored. I'm just talking about it because I don't think this software gets enough highlighting. Probably because it's not free. There are free front ends. I'll try to do different videos on those different front ends, but the TLDR is it is a nice front end. I do think if you have the cash, $80 is not a horrid number. It is a lot, but if you do rely very heavily on software, and especially a lot of software apps, that gives you the app for an entire year. And you don't have to dual boot. For in a lot of cases, it's kind of nice. Or deal with a clunky virtual machine. And you can get a free trial for 14 days. It's one of the reasons why we're talking about it. I'm at the end of my trial. I've had a little bit of time to download it, mess with it, install some apps, and kind of give some feedback. If I actually go into their application database, they do a pretty good job here actually listing out apps, what works, what doesn't, and so on and so forth. So say you use Microsoft Office. It'll show you the star rating for Microsoft Office. Up through Office 2010, pretty much runs without any issues at all. It's when you get beyond that you start running into issues. CodeWeavers is a little ahead the curve, but not that much. They do make patches here and then move them upstream immediately afterwards. So it is good on them. You're paying them. You're essentially paying developers. And to use their app is actually pretty simple. you would go, in your case, to free trial, or if you want to buy it, and you tell them, I am Linux. You tell them what kind of based distro you are. This is pretty easy to tell. If you don't know, go to your distribution's website and go read, and you should be able to find what that is. You can also get a none listed. Most of you are going to be in the Ubuntu base. Some of you will be in the Red Hat based. The rest would exist here. I'm not aware of CodeWeavers crossover being packaged in like another package manager. It wouldn't surprise me if the AUR has it. But you'll put in obligatory email and a name. You'll download the trial, and then that will actually download the executable. In my case, it would have been a deb. I have already installed the application, as you saw, so I don't need to go through that. On a Linux Mint, you would double click, pull it up in the installer, and install it. So as you can see, I have already installed some applications, but this is pretty straightforward. You have home, which is all of your installed applications. You have different bottles or containers, and you can think of them as their own little unique wine space. They don't talk to each other. They don't mess with each other. You can do anything you want inside that container and not affect another wine container. It's actually quite nice. It's one of the things that Bottles also does very well, the app named Bottles. Now, I've installed a few pieces of software in here because I needed to see what worked ahead of time. And these three are three pieces of software that I'll probably use. As case in point, this is a piece of software my wife actually would use. I have my own account signed in. And so if it's already installed, you would just come in and as a trial, you'll get hit with this. I'll say try now. And it will launch the software. This might take a moment. This app is a little slow, but it does mostly work. It's got some hardware acceleration issues. I did make some tweaks to it after installation. This is not an app that they directly support installing, and I totally understand. But this is what's cool, is this is an unsupported app, and I was able to just install it by just right-clicking. Once you have the installation of Crossover, you just right-click and say Install with Crossover, and it will try to detect the app that you're trying to install. But yes, as you can tell, there is some hardware acceleration issues with the app. Go away, skip. But it does mostly work. So we'll go ahead and quit. This Solid Edge Community Edition, it sort of works. And you could submit feedback directly to them about how these apps work too as you install them. Not everything is a right-click install without, compromise. In this case, for 2021 Solid Edge, it does have an installer that I did search for, and this is Solid Edge. This is just the freebie version for home. I was just going to use it for some basic CAD software since I haven't learned FreeCAD yet, but I do know Solid Edge okay. Another piece of software that I've got running in here is SketchUp. I have an old sci-fi project that still relies on the software because that's what I originally built it in. I'm trying to get into Blender or another piece of software to get things going. But in the meantime, it does work via Wine. The hardware acceleration is not perfect, and like menus are a little off, but it does work. Let's see if I can open a model real quick. It does mostly work. You can tell there is some lag. It's not perfect, but for just getting stuff like this out of SketchUp and into something else, it works okay. So now you're going to ask me, well, how do I get an application installed? There's actually two different ways to install an application on Crossover. You can just go into the Install a Windows Application field and click on any of these items, or search for something. Say I want to install Express. This gets a 1-star rating. And this is because it will create the bottle and it will fail. So what we're going to do, we're going to say install. It's going to create the bottle. It's going to create it as a Windows 7 32-bit bottle called Garmin Express. And then we will install the, in this case, US version of Garmin Express. Garmin Express being the piece of software that allows you to download maps and things for a Garmin GPS. Now, if you install this for the first time, your first bottle, it will ask to install particular packages on your system ahead of time, and that's okay. So yeah, we will try now. We're going to see that a couple different times while setting this stuff up. So it's going to set up all the .NET framework. This is all fully automated. Okay, so there's .NET 4.6.2. I believe that's all of it. Yep, now we're actually installing the application. So sometimes it takes a minute. You'll have to agree. And initializing. Now, I know for a fact on this app that it will fail to either download or install. We'll see if it does. This is an older version of the Express app. I was hoping that might give me a better shot. Just as a point that not everything installs. Yeah, you see it could not be installed in this computer. Please try again. And the rating, reflects that. So you can sometimes have issues like that. Now, if you do have a failed install and you have this wine bottle here, you can right-click and delete. You can rename it, delete it, whatever you want to do to it, and it's gone. Boom, it's gone. Don't have to deal with it anymore. If I go to install Microsoft Office 2003, because maybe you have some old spreadsheets or whatnot that, need an older version of Microsoft Office. I do have these set up for Office 2019. It says it doesn't work. I don't feel like trying to figure that out today, but say you've got a copy of Office 2003 and that's more than enough for you, and you don't want to learn LibreOffice. You do something with macros that only works in Excel. This is an option. And I won't worry about filling the rest of this out. I'm not going to keep this installed anyway. We're going to say typical install. Install it. Boom. So it created this wine bottle and it dumped it all right here. So now if I double click on an application, and of course my software activated, I now have a copy of, Office 2003. Working on this system, and it'll work just fine inside Wine. If you open, it'll open. This is a Word document, and I save it to my documents. It saves to my documents. And just as easy as I had this installed, if I am, let's say I don't need this anymore, or maybe I've done my Excel workbook stuff, and I don't need Excel anymore for Excel things. Just come over here, right click, delete it. It'll destroy the entire bottle. It's gone. It's all gone. But obviously some apps work, and that's the history of Wine previous to Valve getting involved and Proton being a huge thing in the gaming space. But there are some old games that will run on Wine that don't need Proton, or at least Proton's overkill, or they don't run in Proton. Take, for example, I have a physical copy of Microsoft Fury 3, which I have mounted here, and I'm just going to install with Crossover. And so it thinks this is Star Wars Galaxies. It's not. So I will say install an unlisted. And you can then use anything you want. It'll create a bottle. So you point it to here for the installer. We want a new bottle. In this case, it will be Windows 98. So let's say this is Microsoft Fury 3. This game does work on base Wine. It's kind of cool, actually. I got it working on a MacBook once. And so it's going to create the bottle. And then here's the setup. I am War Thunder. And again, yeah, I could just install Wine and install the game myself through a terminal interface. But I didn't do anything here that required me to do anything. And yeah, I'll just say install everything, typical. Sure. And then now it's going to go and install stuff. This should go pretty quickly because it's on an SSD. Yeah. This game's fairly small. Yep, successfully installed. And there's my desktop icon. And there we go. So I don't need the CD anymore. I know that for a fact. We'll just leave it pointed there. And if we launch the game, it should just launch. Heck, I have a folder I've been moving around for years that was on a flash drive. Just because it's where my save file was. And here you go, Microsoft Home. Yes, it'll give you a warning about 256 colors. Hell yeah. Just bring the volume down quite a bit because I don't know if it'll get me anything crazy. This is the game running. It even doesn't have a drift bug. There's actually a drift bug on modern Windows where it won't... you'll have a constant drift to the right for no apparent reason. And yeah, I think we can give that a rest. So if you got really old games too, there's a huge incentive for that, especially. So with that, that's pretty much where I'm going to stop. Like I said, some software works, some doesn't. Some sort of works, some works pretty well. So if you do like the video, go ahead and like the video. I will eventually cover the other apps that do exist that do this kind of same thing. But if you do like to support a dev somewhere, buy yourself a copy of Crossover and support the devs that make Wine awesome. With that, I'm going to get out of your hair, and y'all have a great day.